Hokie Hangover got the whole trio here for you tonight, boys. Mike McDaniel, Andrew Alex. I'm Ricky the Blue. Boys, welcome. I don't know what your weather is at the moment, but I'm currently sitting in at least a few inches of snow here at the beach.
It snowed here this morning. They didn't tell us that it was going to snow. They just pulled a fast one. They were like, "Oh, we're releasing a special weather statement. By the way, rush hour is going to suck." Is basically what it said. So they were like, "Oh, if you're on the I'm at home, so it didn't bother me." But they were like, "Oh, if you're doing a morning commute, it could be slick." And it's like, yeah, I'll say. I mean, yeah, I woke up, snow started falling. I took the trash out because I totally forgot last night at 10 of 7 this morning, and it was freezing and already starting to snow. And I was like, I didn't even know it was going to snow today. So that was news to me. But this is our second accumulating snow in 5 days, and I can't remember the last time that happened this early in December.
Not snowing in Charlotte. I'll tell you that much.
Good.
Not snowing in Charlotte, but it's not to be expected around here. The city can only ask for so much, and while we did not get a winter wonderland, we did get a Duke victory on Saturday.
And yes, we did.
A beautiful, beautiful thing right there.
Did you go, Andrew?
No, I did. I couldn't put myself through going.
I don't blame
I figured I thought that Duke had a chance, but I figured that if I inserted myself into the situation, they would have a 100% chance of winning. If I had forked up money to go to that game in hopes of watching them lose, they would for certain win. So I kept my distance by about.
I will say there were certainly tickets available.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that any surprise, Mike?
No.
Given the
Duke's got 15 people that have ever gone to school there, and Virginia doesn't travel to anything. So no, I was not surprised.
Yeah, it's I'll tell you this. Having lived in this city now this would be my 4th December as a Charlotte resident. And
that was quick.
I know, right? It seems like just yesterday I was still shacked up in the Berg. But usually around the ACC championship, there's a palpable, the city feels like it's changed when you're out in public because there's so many people wearing the uniform or the colors, spirit stuff, what have you, of the teams that are participating in the game. Certainly did not feel that as much just out there in the streets.
Yeah. You're telling me nobody was jazzed, Andrew, about watching 7-5 Duke get the
a game that just took place 3 weeks ago, right?
Yeah. Look, we're definitely going to get into that in the implications of that later in the show when we talk about the college football playoff.
I'm going to scream about the Alabama thing.
It was hilarious, and I do want to give Michael McDaniel, noted Golden Domer, an opportunity to defend his program that he loves so dearly, but we'll get to that later. More importantly, boys, Virginia Tech seems to have landed on their defensive coordinator. A lot of these times when you make executive hires and stuff like that, you're paying relocation bonuses and things like that, and you're making sure guys have hotels when they come in, before they can find a house and whatnot. That's not the case with this one. Virginia Tech is reportedly hiring Brent Pry as its defensive coordinator for the 2026 season, a move that we joked about considerably on this show, on social media, and we were obviously not the only ones. This was a running joke in Hokie's Twitter. But it has happened. Virginia Tech is reportedly hiring Brent Pry. Not official yet. The university has not announced it. I do believe that's coming as soon as more of the defensive staff is solidified, which may take a little bit considering some of the folks involved. However, I think we can be pretty certain at this point that Brent Pry is staying in Blacksburg. He's moving 2 doors down probably. Office is maybe 70% the size, but he's still coaching. He's still going to be wearing that maroon and orange this fall.
I mean, it's it's one of the strangest things I've ever seen happen in college
Yeah.
football.
Yeah.
And to give my like overall summary thought, it's basically like I could see the argument for it, but you just could have gone a lot of different routes other than this. And for a variety of reasons, you could make the argument that the other routes are better. Like, I don't think it's doomed to fail. I just see that if it doesn't go well, it's just going to be like Groundhog Day. Like, people are like, it will inevitably happen. It's just a matter of to what degree it does happen. The fan base is going to be up in arms about the same guy as the last few years. Like, he's still here, which, like, I think he could be a better coordinator than he was a head coach. The reason for that being that he was a better coordinator than he ended up being a head coach during his time at Penn State, and that his shortcomings as a head coach weren't necessarily because of his knowledge on how to call a defense. It was actually pretty much everything else that did him in.
Yeah.
But when you hire James Franklin, you are signing up for what James Franklin thinks is best. And when evaluating the options, he apparently has determined that Brent Pry is the guy that he wants to run his defense. They've done well together before, and he's a man of strong loyalty. But it's going to be weird. It's going to be weird.
Yeah, it is, Mike.
So, like, he was on the board as an option, right, for defensive coordinator. There were some others. Robert Livingston at Colorado. Heard rumors about Poindexter for obvious reasons. The ties to Virginia. He was on Franklin's old staff. Tim Banks was out there, but he was about to get fired by Tennessee, and he did today. So it's like, optically, what does that look like? Couple things. So when CBS Sports broke this on Saturday night, how it went down, I was working the late shift for SI. I sent basically 2 texts. I said, "This isn't happening, is it?" And the response was, "Yeah, it's actually happening, like, tomorrow." I'm like, this can't be real. But, like, Zenitz and Richard Johnson are, like, 2 very good reporters, like, very reputable. So, like, I was like, wow, is this actually going to happen? It's like, oh, okay. My initial thought was 2 things. Number one, same thing Andrew said. This is really strange, not because we've never seen an assistant go back to a school. We've seen that, right? Petrino, Zach Arnett, literally like 3 days before. That was really soon, by the way. He just got fired by Mississippi State like 2 years ago as their head coach. So that was kind of soon. Now he's back as defensive coordinator under Levy. That's a little weird. So that was my first thought. It's like, wow, he was fired 3 months ago. I don't think I've ever seen this before. Like, the school's still literally paying his buyout, and that's a little odd. The second thing was like, okay, who else was Franklin going to hire? Because I just named like a few other options, right? But his real history with like having a defensive coordinator work under him is Brent Pry, right? Like, Brent Pry is his defense. Like, if he had to handpick a defensive coordinator, like a guy to run his defense, it's Brent Pry. Like, Pry left for Virginia Tech, and then what did Franklin do? He hired Manny Diaz. Manny Diaz goes to Duke. It's like, okay, hire Tom Allen. Okay, Tom Allen leaves, goes to Clemson. It's like, okay, now Jim Knowles. So he's just like cycling through defensive coordinators, right? Because his guy left. Pry is his guy.
Yep.
Circumstances make this really weird, right? Because he just got fired as the head coach. But what is really apparent to me is that obviously no bridges were burned with Brent Pry, right? Which we assumed based on how the press conference went and based on how the search committee talked about Brent Pry after the fact, right? After Franklin was hired, how they spoke very highly of Brent Pry, still just said, hey, it just didn't work out. The donors still like Brent Pry. A lot of people in that building still like Brent Pry. It just didn't work out. It was time for a change. So if James Franklin, the guy that you just paid millions of dollars to come in and resurrect your football program, says, that's my defensive coordinator, that's my coach, and you've literally already given him the world in terms of NIL, in terms of the full rev share, in terms of, all the resources that you are going to provide, right, from the donors, because James Franklin's your head coach. When he says, well, Brent Pry is my defensive coordinator, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Say no? Okay. Of course you're going to say yes. So, yeah, I was surprised at first, and I thought a little bit more about it, and I was a little less surprised. It was just that it is all weird because of the timing of it. It's very strange. We have not seen this before. It is very funny how things work out. I really like this for Pry's family, obviously. Like Brent Pry, the person. Like, this is a slam dunk. You don't have to move. Like, you don't have to do any of that. That's great. But man, it is odd. I think I think it definitely had, we can get into merits and what could go wrong and all that stuff now, but like I do see a lot of upside with it. I do see some ways it could go sideways too, though. So there are some questions there as far as how Franklin would handle it. That's kind of a concern that I have, but on the face, like, I think Pry can coach a defense. I'm not really that concerned about that.
Yeah, I don't think that that's really a concern for anybody. That for me, and I think I messaged this to you guys when we found out it was actually happening, but I want to make sure I put this out there. A move like this, as unprecedented as it is, only happens for 3 reasons. Brent Pry loves James Franklin. Brent Pry loves Virginia Tech, and Brent Pry loves coaching football. He would not make a move like this if he did not have that pre-existing relationship with with Pry and the Pry family. Franklin was playing under Brent Pry's dad at East Stroudsburg, which is a Division II school in Pennsylvania. Mike, you mentioned that when Franklin was, when he was at Vanderbilt and when he was getting Penn State off the ground, Brent Pry was the guy that was helping him do it on that side of the ball. The other thing, too, that I think we've mentioned on this show, but I think it's important to reiterate, is that Brent Pry really does like Virginia Tech and Virginia Tech has a special place in his heart. He really got his first taste of big-time college football at Virginia Tech under Bud Foster and Frank Beamer in 1995. He wasn't going to leave James Franklin for any job, I don't think. Because I'm pretty sure Brent had other opportunities before and decided not to leave. So he came to Virginia Tech for a reason. Virginia Tech is a special place to him. And also for a guy that just got paid a nice little vacation check to go spend more time with his family, he clearly wants to get back into coaching to be able to jump into this position so quickly. Because otherwise, you would just enjoy yourself in the Bahamas or Florida or wherever the hell you wanted to spend your vacation and your days after that kind of buyout. Pry clearly wants to coach again. He clearly still has a love for this place. And that relationship with James Franklin is as strong as it's ever been. And a move like this does not happen without those 3 things. And I do think it's important to talk about the merits of the hire, just if you remove this whole aspect of it from it, because there's some things to talk about there. But as unprecedented as it is, I think it kind of proves that this bond is pretty damn strong, which, Mike, to your point, could be a plus and potentially a negative down the road should things not go the way that everyone is hoping.
Yeah, I mean, when we talk about the merits, right? First of all, why would we think that this wasn't going to happen, right? There's 2 ends of the stick. Number one, if you're James Franklin, regardless of whatever relationship you have with Brent Pry, it is somewhat of a weird thing to have the guy that was previously in your job, that was the face of the program, that sat in your office, and that inevitably they're not going to flip the entire roster, though they will flip much of it, will be the guy that initially recruited and some of these veteran players on your team that you're going to rely on for playing time played for.
When you put it that way.
I mean, that would be why Franklin doesn't do it. So number one, that's the fact that he did speaks to his loyalty to Brent Pry. Number two, the trust that he has for Brent Pry. And number three, his like overall alpha sense that he has about himself, that he does not think that will be a problem at all whatsoever. Like that he's not worried about that. Like he's not insecure about the potential potential power struggle or misperception or what have you. So that kind of speaks volumes. On top of that, though, even if like, you know, if I was Brent Pry, or if 95% of other situations were the situation, right? Like, even if Franklin was begging for you to come back, you might not do it sheerly out of a matter of pride, right? Like, it would be tough to be the head coach somewhere and then become a second or third in command less than a calendar year later. I mean, he's starting up again, I assume, any day now, right? Like he never had to leave town. So it is strange. And I think that one of the potential downsides there, and obviously I think my key fears would be either of situation one or two. Mostly situation one comes to fruition, and like having Pry there ends up being a distraction towards trying to change the culture. I think that's like your worst possible 10,000 foot view scenario. The second is that fans will get fed up with Pry immediately if he's not good in year one, because it's a reliable target that they remember being mad at from before. And that's just kind of an awkward step potentially to get the tenure off to. But ultimately, right, like if you pretend that the situation of him being the head coach previously wasn't the case, and you just say, I'm going to take a guy who was a successful defensive coordinator for half a decade plus at one of the biggest schools in the country, who then left to become a head coach. It didn't work out as a head coach. Now he's back on the coordinator market. We'll take him, right? So like the credentials and the experience is there. What concerns me is just the extra stuff that comes with it. It feels a little reality TV for me, if you know what I mean, like when it doesn't need to be that way.
I think the worst possible scenario, I'm not as concerned about the culture thing. The worst, maybe I should be, like I haven't really thought about that. Maybe I should be, but I'm not as concerned about that. The thing that came to mind for me is like, man, it would really suck. The thing you said about the Andrew, the fan base turning on him quick, that is what came to mind for me, right? Fan base could turn on him quick. It would really suck to have to fire him twice. That's something that came to mind. But I think there's also just like an inherent trust between Franklin and Pry, that like he has coached with Franklin for so long that he knows kind of what to expect, and he knows what that defense is going to look like. By the way, the players are going to be a lot better than once Pry had to. Like that might not be the case next year, but it's going to be the case, right? So I think that's certainly going to help everybody look better. You had to get somebody with play calling experience in here, right? It's a concern I have about the offensive coordinator role, because I don't know what's going to happen there. There's a question in the chat about that, and I don't want to get too off topic, but like that seems to be going a couple different directions. I'm not sure where we're going to actually end up. So TBD there. But I think what was really important, and what we all talked about when Franklin was the hire, was who is he going to hire as his coordinators? And I think what Ricky and I said, Andrew, when you were overseas and this hire happened, was, well, we probably don't need to worry about James Franklin hiring anybody with no play calling experience. It's probably not something we have to worry about. TBD, you know, we'll see what happens on offense, but Pry's got play calling experience. He knows how to call a defense. He's had to step in at times and pitch in more than he wanted to on the defensive side of the ball when he was head coach. We know that, right? Colby Crawford, VT Scoop, your buddy Andrew, tweeted out something either it was either on Saturday night right after this broke, or sometime yesterday on Sunday, where he said that he had spoken to one player on Virginia Tech's defense that said, we all love Pry. He should have been calling the defense this year. Which Sam Siefkes, buddy. Oh boy. That's not a glowing endorsement, huh? But yeah, I think they're obvious thing to me is play calling experience. The other thing is the recruiting in the state of Virginia, right? Which, I don't think ever got to a level that we were all hoping for when Pry was a head coach, but it was definitely better than it was when he got here. I think that's a fair statement to make. Certainly better than it was when he took over the relationships in the state of Virginia. Franklin has a lot of those relationships already, right? From Penn State. But a lot of these high school coaches like Brent Pry, right? They do. And I think that helps having like two guys from the same staff that you like. I think is probably going to be significant. And add that into the fact that Virginia Tech's money bag is going to be a lot bigger now. And now you have two coaches that you can trust on the same staff in state. I think that's going to really, really help Virginia Tech. I think Pry has a lot of upside as a recruiter on the staff too. So that's another piece of this I really like. The downsides really, it's just fan base turning on them quick, which I think could happen. I think that's realistic. The culture thing, Andrew, I think I'm more concerned about that like next year than like in the out years. Like I don't think Pry is going to undermine. I think him and Franklin, I think are too tight for like Pry to undermine, like Franklin trying to overhaul the culture. But that's something I would be concerned about, I think, next year, especially when there are going to be a lot of holdovers that are players that Pry recruited. But I don't. Yeah, that's less of a concern for me.
I mean, like, and I'm not saying that like I think that Pry. One of the reasons that you wouldn't do this in a normal situation, right? And it kind of speaks to like think about like with Fuente and all the articles that have come out since, and how they, talk about like the fact that Bud was still in the building, and the fact that a lot of these guys that had been around forever were still in the building. And Fuente wanted to change up the way that things were done, but then there's like the John Boleyn, sect of your department that's saying, oh, like, no, like the way we used to do things with Coach Beamer were better, right? Like that's not going to be a thing with Brent Pry. Like that requires intentional sabotage. Brent Pry is not going to do that. Like Brent Pry, like, I mean, none of us have ever said anything bad personally about Brent Pry. We all love Brent Pry, the person. And like I'm confident that he gave what he believed to be his best effort to Virginia Tech, and it didn't work out. Like, that's cool. Like the fact that he wants to come back here, like speaks total volume. That being said, like the reason I wouldn't have expected this, like what I would have expected is, maybe Pry sticks around town and works as an analyst for like a year or two to the point where the roster is entirely flipped. And then the whoever is hired as defensive coordinator first either is canned or is, goes on to greener pastures, or maybe you just bring in Pry and do the co-defensive coordinator role like Franklin is so prone to do. I just didn't think it would happen right away. But I mean, James Franklin's the one in the room making that decision, and that's who he wanted. And Brent Pry was very down to come back in a year where he could have just gotten paid to do nothing, right? How does it even work with the buyout?
So
are we eating at, or is it just like a net positive at like where we were at?
A question that I had gotten on Twitter was, what's going on with the buyout? The one thing I will say is, as of Saturday night, when I first found out this was happening, they weren't sure what was happening with the buyout yet. And my hunch is that this buyout isn't going to go all the way to zero. Like that would be kind of like, I don't think they're just going to rip it up, because these are going to be two completely different contracts. It would surprise me if it went that route. I have a feeling Virginia Tech will still be paying Pry something, but how that actually manifests itself, like with his new contract, it's one of those things, right? Where like everybody expected Franklin to get X, Y, and Z from a contract standpoint. I mean, I told you guys several times, I thought that Franklin was going to be making somewhere in the neighborhood of like 11 million a year, but that was before I found out that Penn State dropped the buyout to 9 million. I'm like, okay, that's a little bit different. That I don't know what this means then. So I don't know. I'm curious to see what Pry will be paid as a defensive coordinator. Like, because you're already paying him a buyout, are you going to then give him a smaller salary here? You know what I mean? And then that way they can continue to flush out the staff. I don't know. Another question I had for both of you is, How much of this do you guys think could be not only, Franklin's got to win games here, right? He's got to win games. That's like number one. He's got to win games at Virginia Tech, do what's best for him in this job. He trusts Pry. Okay, great. But how much of this, too, do you think, when Franklin's evaluating candidates to take over as defensive coordinator, how much of this you guys think is him being like, I can do Brent Pry a solid and like repair his reputation pretty quickly after things went south as a head coach?
Well, one quick point on the buyout, and I don't understand how the buyout works, but isn't it usually that, if I am fired, if say Brent Pry went to somewhere else, right, and we owe him, say, $3 million a year for the buyout, and he goes and gets $1.5 million a year from the other team, don't we only have to pay the difference? So in a sense, could hiring Brent Pry be like effectively a zero cost thing for Virginia Tech, because you're paying him
already,
subtracts for the buyout, and then he's gonna make the full buyout amount anyway. You're just getting defensive coordinator labor and money that is freed up because you're not paying Brent Pry that now. Like,
to do that's what I'm saying. Functionally, I have no idea how it's going to work.
I have no clue. But to your point, Mike, no, I mean, you have to think with James Franklin that, like, I mean, he's definitely like pondered all the aspects of it that we've been talking about here, and he feels like Brent Pry is the guy that he wants to run his defense. Like, VT Scoop was all over this for a couple days beforehand, and Pry was thrown out there along with the name, defensive coordinator Tony Banks from Tennessee, and Tony Banks did end up becoming available. Like, I mean, I don't know where conversations were had there or what have you, but like ultimately, like, there were options on the market. James Franklin chose Brent Pry. And I think it's probably because, just like you see in many other situations, I'm sure a lot of people who are listening to this right now in their professional careers have followed their boss, or you've been a boss and moved and taken your people with you. It happens in college football all the time. And the reason is, people are more prone to trust in a situation where they have high leverage themselves, a formula that they know works, and a person that they've spent extensive amounts of time in the trenches with. And that's James Franklin and Brent Pry. Like, I think that's what it comes down to. I hope that I at least like to hope that James Franklin looked at this with as sober eyes as possible and disregarded as much as possible any personal, like, Brent wants this, he loves the town, let's just bring him back for that. Like, I don't think that that's the case, right? I hope he truly believes that there's no one available on the market that he'd rather have run his defense than Brent Pry.
So a few things, just some quick searching. I can't find any sort of offsetting clause in Brent Pry's contract from when it was originally reported. So I don't know if there is any offset clause. I would imagine that they came to some sort of financial agreement that made sure Pry was fairly compensated both for getting canned and also taking on this new responsibility. Another thing about Tim Banks from Tennessee, the defensive coordinator there, I still think it's a possibility Tim Banks ends up on this staff, even with Brent Pry taking the defensive coordinator job. We'll see what's out there for Tim Banks now that he is on the market, but I would not be surprised to see Banks coaching DBs next year with maybe a co-defensive coordinator tag. I think that that's entirely reasonable. As far as like whether or not I think Franklin's doing Pry a solid here, I don't think Franklin would sacrifice his potential to win at Virginia Tech to help a friend out. As tight as those guys are. And I mean, when you look at just the numbers of what Brent Pry has done as a defensive coordinator, it's easy to see why he made this decision. 11 years, Brent Pry was a defensive coordinator at Vanderbilt and Penn State. In 5 of the 11 seasons, his defense has finished in the top 30 in both scoring and total defense. In his 11 seasons as a coordinator, they finished in either the top 30 in either scoring or total defense in every year except 2016. So this is a defense that has been incredibly productive that he's coached. We know that he played a huge role in the defense in year one at Virginia Tech when they were struggling mightily. Chris Marv was kind of a fish out of water and wasn't really sure what was going on yet. And I thought Pry did an okay job considering the circumstances of how bad that roster was. But if you remove Brent Pry's name from the resume and you look at what he's done, his track record, this is an obvious hire. If there's an offensive coordinator, right, that has this kind of track record of success, and just so happens that they were a head coach and got canned after 3.25 years, Virginia Tech would hire that coach in a heartbeat, and we'd be very happy about it. So I think fans, that there are some concerns, right? How does Franklin treat Pry if things go south? Are there any players in the locker room that actually quit on Brent Pry? What are the ramifications of bringing him back in? But all in all, when you look at this seems like a no-brainer, and we're kind of at the mercy of trusting James Franklin at this point, and I'm inclined to trust him regardless, given his background. I think this is going to be a good hire. I think this is going to work out fine. And, for Brent, maybe this is a chance for him to rehab his career and go find a smaller job after this, as a head coach somewhere. But I think this is a good opportunity for both sides.
It's unprecedented for sure. But to your point, Ricky, like, you brought in James Franklin because you wanted James Franklin to be calling the shots and try to run this football program in the image that he's run previous programs, right? Like, that's what we want, to be elevated to that sense of seriousness. And doing that involves allowing James Franklin to make whatever decisions he sees fit that he thinks gives him the best chance to win. Like, it's not like he's never done it before. Like, he's won football games, calling his own shots. And, you wanted him. So this was, I guess, always a possibility. Maybe not one that a lot of people took too seriously. But at the end of the day, like, you wanted him, and Brent Pry is a big reason that he's here. So kind of all, it makes sense on that end. But to your point, Ricky, again, like, no one, if James Franklin was at any other school, it would make the most sense for this to happen. It was before it was even reported that he was going to Virginia Tech. People were saying, oh, I guarantee you, Brent Pry ends up as a defensive coordinator at the next place James Franklin ends up. That place just happens to be Virginia Tech. And the history is the only thing that makes it super weird.
Yeah, and I still haven't found a documented instance of this happening. Right? Did you guys find any?
Not the very next year. I mean, Mike made the Mississippi State comparison right there. There's the Petrino
That's
comparison.
the close. Arnett is the closest one, and he's like 2 full seasons removed.
Yeah.
I mean, Petrino was like 10 years removed or whatever. It had been a long time.
Yeah.
There's also never been a scenario, I don't think, where, I mean, maybe there has, but a program fires a head coach and then immediately hires that coach's mentor and the coach that he learned from. I mean, I don't know that, I'm sure that could potentially have happened before, but I don't know, man. It just seems so damn odd and random, but I'm not complaining. I think this is going to be fine. Yes, there is a way, or multiple ways, honestly, that this could go south. But Mike, you bring up a good point. Virginia Tech should have a much better roster this year than they've had at any point of Brent Pry's tenure on defense. I really do believe that.
Yeah. I think it's a higher percentage of it working than not.
Yes.
Yeah.
It has a good chance to work out, for sure. But I mean, Ricky, to your point just there, like how the hiring of Franklin in the wake of Pry is unprecedented in and of itself, probably. It's like, for that reason alone, the connection alone was enough for me right after Franklin got canned and before we started hearing any rumors to be like, no, there's no shot that James Franklin's coming here. We just fired his absolute boy, Brent Pry. He's not going to come here and be the coach after Brent Pry. And here we are like 2 months later and James Franklin is the coach and Brent Pry is the defensive coordinator. Like, I seriously am finding this timeline that we are in to be like, pinch me, it's time to wake up deal.
We need the ESPN 30 for 30 at Andrew-CT5WE. Good Lord, man. Get a new username. People will not forget how this all went down. 30 for 30 one day. Absolutely. If James Franklin wins to any serious extent, this entire situation will have to be documented for sure.
And when these people are making these documentaries in the future about really any point in Virginia Tech football, let me tell you, there is plenty of usable media commentary content from this podcast that you could find. Good takes, bad takes, everywhere in between, but tending to be very passionate one way or the other.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Also, Clark Rulin, thanks for joining the show. Got to think Pry will keep the lunch pail tradition alive. I have a feeling that's going to stick too. I really do. The 25 jersey, I don't know. We'll see, but I find it hard to believe that the lunch pail is gonna be set off to the side, put in a closet somewhere.
Do we think the 25 jersey is going to survive? Franklin City called up Beamer, get his blessing to run his program.
He did. The guy does have a big amount of respect for Frank.
Yeah. So maybe.
I hate it. I'm totally fine with it. I
don't care either.
Me at all.
It became a meme when the team was bad.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, like who cares? It's like saying, my favorite tweets of any time Virginia Tech is doing bad, which hopefully we don't have to deal with many of those spells going forward. But people tweeting like, they got to stop playing Enter Sandman until this team can turn it around. Like, we're an embarrassment. Like, I get it, but you're not gonna. The solution to slowly losing your tradition of winning is not to kill all the traditions that were born out of your tradition of winning. Like, you just got to try to improve the program. I don't think James Franklin is all that worried about, the 25. I mean, maybe he will take it away. It's just, I do feel like it would be a little weird just because of the nature of it. Like, number 25 was to honor the legendary former coach who's now an old man, seemingly possibly in not the best of health. Yeah, let's scrap that. We're done with that. Like, I feel like that'd be kind of weird.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll find out though.
Yeah. The 25 jersey and the hey, let's cancel Enter Sandman until the team's good. The second one in particular I'm a Red Sox fan. Reminds me a lot of the tweets I see if the Red Sox are like 60 and 90 in September. And they get really mad about Sweet Caroline playing at Fenway Park in the 7th inning when they're down like 15-2 to the Orioles or something. They're like,
hey, whoa,
why do we still play? Why do we still? You were right in front of me. Hey, why are we still playing Sweet Caroline? Yeah, it's the same. It's a very similar energy.
Yeah, like I can tell you, the traditions are not the problem.
Right.
They brought back Stick It In for the Miami game. I don't know. That was something.
That's one tradition I think we can all agree needs to stay. I think it's totally fine.
It was funny. I was sitting with just my girlfriend who had never been to a game in Blacksburg before, and they played that song. I'm like, oh my god, and she's like, what? And then I had to explain it, and like as I'm explaining it, I'm like, this is crazy to like tell this story out loud to someone who's never heard it before, especially in the wake of seeing like an overjoyed reaction. It's like, oh, so like, you're super happy because they brought back a marching band song that's like sexual innuendo. Like
Sandra gets done telling that story. Stick it in.
Yeah, it's like the crowd's going crazy for the sexual innuendo. But that's college football, man. I love college football traditions. I'll tell you that much. All of them.
For what it's worth, it can't be as bad as whatever the Texas A&M like male cheerleaders do during games.
Oh, the yell leaders. Yeah.
Just ridiculous. And even like the night before their big game, right? I don't know who they do it before. They do like a big rally before. It is the weirdest shit you'll ever watch related to college sports.
Yeah. I mean, I'm always I treat other colleges with a lot of grace, right? Like some traditions aren't meant to look super cool on the outside looking in. I mean, we do the hokey pokey during the game. That's not particularly like outside looking in cool. But Texas A&M, I feel like everyone's on the same page. Like I'm trying to be nice here, but it just comes off as a little weird sometimes. I don't know. But that place is a football cult, though.
Yes,
they will defend themselves up and down, and I guess good for them.
Yeah, speaking of weird shit in college football, Notre Dame is not going to the Pop-Tarts Bowl, which is the coolest bowl in all of sports. Hold on, Mike. Hold it in. Let's make sure we lay the foundation here. So, in case you've been living under a rock, folks, the college football bracket is out. Not going to bore you with most of these selections because you probably don't care and you maybe have seen them all already anyway. The key part of this bracket, obviously, was determining who the last at-large bids would be. And given that Duke, go Blue Devils, got a huge dub in Charlotte this past weekend, the ACC was going to lose out on their automatic bid because Duke was not going to be ranked high enough, nor should they be. They were 8-5. They were pretty mediocre all year long, which means there was an extra at-large bid available. And the discussion at that point was Alabama, Notre Dame, and Miami. Notre Dame, which has been in the rankings and in the bracket for several weeks now.
6.
I knew Mike would have that number. Notre Dame fell out despite not playing this weekend. Miami's in, Alabama's in, Notre Dame's out. Notre Dame decides, I'm going to take my ball and go home. We're going to quit. We're not going to play in the bowl game. So Notre Dame season is over. Mike, given that you are the Golden Domer on this show, have at it, Chief.
For those of you who don't know, I grew up a Notre Dame fan, did not get into school there, ended up at Virginia Tech. Things work out, right? Let me explain to you where my frustration is, okay? For 6 weeks, you position a team in the bracket and you set a precedent, right? That they are going to be ranked higher than one team in particular that they're being compared against. And then in the final week of the year, when no games were played by either team, that is when you decide to flip them. Now, before everybody freaks out, Miami absolutely should have been in the college football playoff at 10-2 when being compared directly to Notre Dame. That's not an issue I have. Either Miami should have been in and Notre Dame should have been out, or both Miami and Notre Dame should have been in. There's no scenario in my mind where Notre Dame should have been in and Miami should have been out, given they were both 10-2 and head-to-head. The issue that I have is that the committee set the precedent that was a thing that might happen for 6 weeks. And for some reason, they decided that it was going to be the final week that they were going to flip them for reasons I'm still trying to understand, right? I still don't really get it. And the reason they gave was, they were ranked right next to each other. So now we can compare the head-to-head, which, by the way, I've been just rage tweeting just with how the committee has handled a bunch of different things. But that is totally arbitrary. You guys are ranking the teams. It's you guys make this ranking up. So to be we put them side by side and now we can do the head-to-head is crazy. It's absolutely insane. Which brings me to my next point. Alabama should have absolutely been sent home. Here's why. Alabama is the only team in the history of the college football playoff to lose in a conference title game and not move down in the bracket in the poll at all. Why is that?
And still make it, because BYU just lost to the same team for the second time.
Yep.
And BYU was punished, and they were removed from the bracket.
Ohio State played a thriller with Indiana on Saturday night. Indiana scores late, gets the stop defensively, wins the game. Ohio State was punished. They moved from 1 to 2, right? Which was correct. Two of the best teams,
the best team in the country right now.
I think Indiana's the best team in the country. They moved up as they should have. Ohio State fell. if there are no consequences for conference championships when you were on the bubble, why are we playing them? Is a question I have. Another issue I have in regard to Alabama in particular is how Alabama has looked over the final month of the season. In fact, we can extend this out even further with how Alabama has looked since the committee said it themselves. Alabama's got the best win in the country against Georgia, right? In Athens in regular season. I can get behind that argument. Since then, Alabama needed a comeback to beat 4-8 South Carolina. They lost to Oklahoma. They blew a 17-point lead in the Iron Bowl against a 5-win team with an interim coach and got rewarded for it. They moved ahead of Notre Dame after they did that, which was I think one of Alabama's worst showings of the year. But the reason that was given by Hunter Yurachek, the chair of the College Football Playoff Committee, was that they were impressed by Alabama's gutsiness to run a fake punt in the fourth quarter, which they needed to run, by the way, to make sure that they won the football game against 5-win Auburn. And they're talking about, Jordan Hare is a really tough place to play. I agree with that in years where Auburn's good. Auburn's bad this year. Kentucky won at Auburn this year. Like, what are we doing? We're just making it up as we go. I have more. The biggest issue I have is the College Football Playoff Committee, ESPN. They protect their big brands in the SEC. It's a made-for-TV product, the College Football Playoff. It is an invitational, right? Alabama's resume, I think, overall is better than Notre Dame's. But I think if you look at how the two teams are playing, I mean, we can make the argument Notre Dame didn't play anybody, right? They lost their two toughest games. And by the way, Notre Dame should have if Notre Dame beats Alabama or A&M, we're not even having this discussion. Like, they're in the playoff. They win one. They split. They didn't have to win both. They just had to split those games and they're in the playoff. So, like, they did this to themselves, right? But at the same time, how the committee handled Alabama needs to be studied. I mean, that was crazy to move them up when they looked really unimpressive against Auburn, to have them not move at all after getting blown off the field by Georgia, because I think Alabama played their best football in October. Like, I don't think they've looked overly impressive since then. I think the committee's handling of Alabama was insane. Now, could Alabama beat Oklahoma? This is a conversation we always have now. Okay, now they're in the playoff. Like, if they start winning, does it justify it? Well, I don't know. Like, if Notre Dame was in the bracket, would they be one of the most dangerous teams in the thing? Probably. They had like the third or fourth highest odds to win the national championship out of the top 12 to 15 teams if they were to make it in. You can make the argument that they could have absolutely gone on a run. So, like, I don't know if Alabama beating Oklahoma and advancing a couple rounds like justifies it one way or the other. I just think how the committee treated it is absolutely insane. And there are a couple teams, by the way, like BYU lost to Texas Tech twice. Like, that sucks. They won 11 games, right? And I think people who are screaming like, oh, this is a Notre Dame independence thing, they should join a conference. How'd that work out for BYU? I saw Tom Fornelli tweet that out. Like, BYU leaves the Mountain West, they join the Big 12, and then they lose they lose to Texas Tech in the regular season, then they lose in the Big 12 title game. Like, they're not like automatically in the bracket.
Notre Dame should join a specific conference.
They should join a specific conference, right? Correct. Yeah, so those arguments I think are overplayed. But anyway,
wait, Mike, I just have a quick thing, and I have a more simplified take on this. But before I make it, I'm just seeing, like, we got a number of people watching this on YouTube right now. We're currently at 496 subscribers. 500 subscribers on YouTube is a helpful deal. Yes, if anyone who's familiar with YouTube.
Yep.
So we've been trying to do this live stuff. If the 4 of you who are watching who aren't subscribed, feel like you can reward us, very, very much appreciated, and you won't miss anything because there'll be plenty of news to come with other coaching hires, the transfer portal, all that stuff. With that being said, Mike, my take on this, to what you were saying before, like, I think that if I was blind resume, or if I was just based on the resumes picking between Notre Dame and Miami, like, I would pick Miami. I also think that the way that the committee handled this was, like, actually, like, so stupid. Like, it doesn't make any sense. I think it's funny that the entire reason that the scenario exists is because of Boston College beating Syracuse in the last week of the season, screwing up the algorithm for the ACC championship game and putting 7-5 Duke in over Miami, because otherwise Miami would just play to get in against Virginia, and that would be that, and it would all be over.
Notre Dame would be in. Yeah,
and you wouldn't have to put in JMU, and then they'd both be in. Yeah. But of course, like, it's just a reactionary hoopla. Like, I don't believe I believe that you could make an argument on its merits for Notre Dame being in over Alabama, with them both being 2 loss teams. I don't necessarily think that you should punish Alabama for making their conference championship and losing. That being said, I don't believe you should be able to do the same thing to BYU either. I love the John Gruden theory of make it so that every team that's not in the conference championship that's on the bubble is like set up with an additional game. And that's just like something that all teams would know that there's a possibility of happening to them, so as not to give teams an advantage, like, for not making their conference championship game. Because, like, the reality is, right? Like, I mean, you know, if you push Alabama out, you're like, but you're not pushing Oklahoma and Ole Miss out for not playing in they didn't have the opportunity to lose because they didn't make it that far, right? So why should they go unpunished? It's all basically bullshit. Like, the process is so flawed, and they're just going to continue to tinker with it, and then there's going to be unintended consequences of whatever they change it to, and there's no governance in this sport. And at the end of the day, I don't feel bad for anyone, because if you lost a couple of games, you're not guaranteed to be in the college football playoff. The games need to mean
unless
something.
you're Alabama.
It used to be that you couldn't lose any games, and that we would just do the number 1 and 2. And I understand in this landscape it shouldn't be like that anymore, but just like win your regular season games and you won't find yourself in this situation. The crocodile tears from everyone over who's the 12th best team in the country and do they have the right to play for the national championship. You wouldn't have had the right to play in the Belk Bowl some years, like 5 years ago, finishing number 12. Come on. Like, what are we doing?
So I have a lot of thoughts on this, and I've told you guys a lot of them really over the course of the last few years about the playoff. Few things before I get to the broader structure here. The worst loss amongst these bubble teams is Alabama to Florida State.
Correct.
Which is important to note.
Yep. But only Notre Dame losses in week 1 matter.
Also, Alabama does not have the best win of the season. Indiana has the best win of the season.
Yeah,
Indiana
now,
just
yes,
beat Ohio State.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. This is the problem when you have subjective processes, especially when you have subjective processes with people making the decisions that are not football people. These people are athletic directors and like executives. These aren't coaches. These aren't talent evaluators. They're not scouts. They're not pouring through hours of game film. They're not watching these games with a fine-tooth comb. They're reading some box scores. They're getting a handout with some advanced analytics that are all cooked up to push a certain narrative. And they read these numbers and say, oh, well, that must be the best team. They have no idea what they're doing. Guys, I've been telling you for a while now, the subjectivity of this process is the problem. And it's very radical and maybe unrealistic, but we have got to get to some sort of objective standard to decide who the national champion is. Or all we're doing is, like Mike said, is creating a fit for TV entertainment product.
The weekly rankings are crazy.
If that's what the fans want, then fine. I don't agree, but I can at least live with it. But I don't think that's what the fans want. I don't think the fans want an entertainment product. I think the fans want a national champion that earned their way into that spot and were not awarded that spot. And the only way to get to that is to define some sort of objective metric where these teams have to play their way in. I think that making these conference championship games playing games is really the only way to go about this, especially at the Power 4 level. We can come up with some sort of way to make sure that the group of 6 schools are included, because I think they absolutely should be included. I'd much rather watch JMU or Tulane go up there and get a crack at the plate than watch Texas go out there and get another shot at winning a big game when they've already lost 3 games this year. So I'm at the point where I'm dissatisfied with the entire process from start to finish. The playoff is too large. The subjective nature of choosing the teams in the playoff has made us argue about teams that have no business for competing for a national championship anyway. Why the hell should Alabama get to compete for a national championship this year? There's no reason. And I feel the same way about Notre Dame and Miami. They're not the elite teams. There's only probably 4 to 6 teams that really truly are potentially one of the best teams in the country. And that's like Indiana, Ohio State, Georgia, maybe Oregon, and that might be it. Maybe Ole Miss or A&M. You know, you're kind of splitting hairs there. But at a certain point, we have to have some objectivity in this sport. And until we do, the national championship is going to be a bit of a joke. And as the larger this thing gets, which you can bet your ass it's going to get expanded within the next year. Kirk Herbstreit was already calling for it after the bracket was decided, which is just an absolute abomination. The larger this playoff gets, the more the bowls are going to be even more insignificant than they already are, which is tarnishing another historic part of the sport. I hate this from start to finish. I think it all sucks. And unfortunately, I don't see there any momentum in making positive changes to this thing. The only way this is going to get changed is for the worse, and that's going to be making this monstrosity even larger than it already is.
I think Notre Dame, Alabama, and Miami all have the talent necessary to win the national championship. At some point, you have to be penalized for your losses, which is why we shouldn't be in this 12-team playoff to begin with. So I 1,000% agree with you. 1,000% agree with you. Like this should.
Remember all those arguments we had about the 3 and 4 seeds, guys, and how we were arguing about who those teams should be, and everyone said, "Oh, the only way to fix this is to make the playoff bigger. We got to make it 12 teams." Now we're just arguing about teams that are worse than the teams we were arguing about the first time.
Because there are never more than 5 teams starting to push it that are good enough to win the national title anyway. I could get behind an 8-team playoff because at the time there were 5 power conference teams. And then if Notre Dame was good enough in a given year, they were taking one of those up. So there are 5 power conferences, right? And you were, one of those power conferences was going to get left out, sometimes multiple, right? And that was the case in the 14 playoff. So expanding to 8, like I was okay with that, and having like a group of 5 participant. I don't think, by the way, like I've heard people say, "Oh, we gotta," because people are really mad that both Tulane and James Madison got in. But I saw Tom Fornelli. I had the same thought. Tom Fornelli said this for CBS for Cover 3. And I 1,000% agree with it. I don't think you have to change the format just because the ACC didn't hold up their end of the bargain. Like Andrew alluded to it, like the Boston College Syracuse thing threw the ACC's ridiculous tiebreaker scenario into play, where you had a Duke team that wins a 5-way tie. They didn't even play 4 of the teams they were tied with 4 teams. They didn't play 3 of the teams they were tied with, but somehow they're the ones who make it to Charlotte. So Miami, who goes 6-2 in league, doesn't make it to Charlotte. Okay, fine. It is what it is. But now you have this ridiculous scenario where Virginia doesn't hold up their end of the bargain either. Virginia would have been a fine conference champion with how they played this year. Okay, they're in the playoff. Would they be one of the strongest teams in the bracket? Of course they wouldn't be, but they would have been a very deserving conference champion with how they played this year. But they couldn't get there. They couldn't hold up their end of the bargain. Clemson and Florida State sucked. Virginia Tech's been the gutter forever. And Miami was the best team in the ACC. And ironically, I think because they didn't have an opportunity to play in Charlotte, they kind of backed their way in that way, right? Because there was another at-large spot at play that otherwise, Miami would have won their way in theory, right? If they were in the ACC title game. I think we all think Miami's better than both Virginia and Duke. I don't think either one of us is arguing that.
And they still don't belong in the playoff because both of their losses were to teams that aren't even ranked.
SMU and Louisville, who, by the way, they're both 8-4, but like we watched Louisville at the end of the year with how they looked. And then we watched SMU in the final week lose to Cal so that, they had an opportunity to go to Charlotte. and they knocked themselves out losing to freaking Cal, who wasn't any good this year. So it's just all it's all crazy. I don't think you need to like throw the automatic qualifiers and all this thing through a loop. I would be okay. I would certainly be okay if you want to put like more parameters on the group of 5 schools to make sure that in another down ACC year, this doesn't happen again. Because I think we would all rather, I don't think there's a realistic scenario in almost any case where multiple group of 5 teams should be in the college football playoff. I just don't, they're never going to be the 12 best teams. I'm fine with one group of 5 representative in there because you're rewarding the best team in a non-power conference. I think it's good for the sport to have that, right? So I'm totally fine with that. So this truly doesn't become an invitational, which we joke. I mean, it is, but
it already is,
right? But just so we don't have to make that joke more. Like the whole reason you expanded it to begin with was to include a group of 5 school. And now the first time there are 2 in, you get so pissed about it that you block them. Yeah. That you block them back out so you can expand the playoff again and change the rules all over again. Like this is fucking crazy, man. Like this, where does it end? And by the way,
it doesn't
by
end.
the way, this could have been, we could have done like 8 teams and we could have had, if you want to have the committee as a factor in this, that's totally fine.
Like seeding would have been a fine way for the committee to
a fine way for the committee. But Ricky, you've been pounding the table on this for years, and it's been kind of just like a running joke. But dead serious, like bring back the computers. Bring it back.
There has to be some sort, and like the computers would be better than this. But you know what? Like in all seriousness, if we're gonna have a committee, put football people on the committee. Go find a bunch of retired coaches. Make sure you can do some due diligence and make sure that their past records. Make sure the conferences are balanced out so nobody can bitch and moan.
They can sit out. They can sit out if their school's involved, like they already do. Like that's all fine.
But have football people who have actually watched film and understand football make these decisions. I don't need the athletic director for whatever university telling me who the best team in the country is. Because they have no idea who the best team in the country is.
By the way, do you guys know that like simulated BCS account that does like they release their own like poll? I don't know if you guys have seen that on social media, but they have there's a Twitter account that basically just does the BCS rankings every week of like what it would have looked like. The committee got it mostly right, guys. You know what they didn't get right? Alabama being in the field. Well, using the BCS, both Miami and Notre Dame would have been in the top 12, and Alabama would have been the 13th team. So there you have it. What are you going to do?
Well, I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, it's just, folks, money is the root of all evil. That's what we've learned in college football in the last 2 years.
Right.
It's just like, kind of is what it is. Like, I hope that many of our listeners share the sentiment that I do, which I can describe with a lyrics from a poetic group called the Counting Crows, where don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you got till it's gone. And that is the BCS and bowl games meaning something and the veil of amateurism and all that stuff. But that is long in the past. And I just expect this to get worse before it gets better. Like I can think of so many ways that you could potentially like try to fix it. I think most of it aligns with the idea that the power conferences are going to crumble in the matter of the next 5 or so years, and the entire thing will be completely restructured. But for the love of God, we need some unbiased governing body here to run this thing. And that's right now we're playing like Game of Thrones between conference commissioners and the ADs of the teams that are already at the top of the sport anyway, not wanting to get kicked off their pedestal. Like it's very strange.
One last thing, we don't need to like go real deep into this because it's pretty simple to me. Notre Dame being used as a television prop for 6 weeks, being made to believe that they're going to make the playoff, and then their players saying, no, I don't want to play in a bowl game that really is made out to be a joke by the national media every time it's played, because nobody talks about the game on the field. They just talk about the giant edible Pop-Tart at the end. I don't blame Notre Dame for telling ESPN and the bowl partners to just fucking shove it. Totally fine with it. Now, I understand, people may differ on that. I love bowl season, right? So, like, that's a whole different discussion. I hate that all the opt-outs and everything else, because, like, we all know, like, if Notre Dame played in the Pop-Tarts Bowl, we're not seeing Jeremiah Love, who's a Heisman finalist. Like, he's probably sitting out. You know what I mean? And, like, you're seeing second and third stringers. We were all in attendance for the Belk Bowl. I'm sorry, the Mayo Bowl. Sorry, the Duke's Mayo Bowl last year. And we saw Pop Watson and a bunch of, like, walk-on offensive linemen. It's a brutal watch. Like, bowl season has turned into a farce, and that's all because of what we just talked about. So we don't need to go very deeply into it, and that sucks. Notre Dame's athletic director thinking that the ACC was going to do him a solid is insane. Like, with the social media stuff, like, of course they're going to vouch for Miami. Like, that's what, of course they're going to do that. Miami's their football member in the ACC, their best chance to make the playoff, especially after Duke freaking sabotage Virginia's chances of making the playoff on Saturday night. Like, of course they're going to pine for Miami. Like, what are we doing? It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, like,
and they should. They absolutely
should.
Pine for
and they
Miami.
should.
Miami not making the playoff is like Armageddon. Like,
yeah.
Every other conference recruiting against the ACC going forward could just be like, they don't even get a team in the playoff. Why would you go to that conference? We could not allow, we being the collective ACC.
Yeah.
Like, obviously certain power brokers have been asleep at the wheel for long enough, but at least they had the wherewithal to politic for their member institution. Like, whether it's, however much it helped, I don't know. But, and Mike, and by the way, I agree with you. I did make a strong tweet statement against Notre Dame not playing in the bowl. Mike has opened my perspective up a little bit to now just being like, well, they should play in the bowl anyway. But the way that to drop in the ranking after having not played makes just fucking no sense to me. Like, it makes
I can understand the disappointment from the, I get that.
Like, I could get the disappointment. Like, I don't necessarily think that they should have 100% been in. You could make arguments all around, but the way the committee treated them was blasphemous and delegitimizes their own process in a sense.
Yep. Agree.
Two things. And RRVT, maybe they should join the ACC. No, Notre Dame should join the Big Ten. It's as simple as that. Last thing, Duke's Mayo Bowl still got the mayonnaise. Still got the freaking mayonnaise. Never open
Ricky,
that thing.
So that is
don't open it.
No.
Dude, so
I'm wondering how long it's gonna hold. I really don't know.
I threw my yearly Christmas party this year. On Saturday. So either way, my friend comes to help me set up the apartment into Christmas mode. And he's like, look what I got in the bag. He's like, it's Jimmy's mayo from the Mayo Bowl. And I look at it and I'm like, and you can just see it like decomposing. And I'm like, oh my God, dude, I'm going to freaking throw up in the trash can. Get that out of my apartment. Like, that is like, why are you bringing expired mayo into my apartment? You should have.
I have not opened this, and I will not open this.
Do not, please.
Well, we'll testify of how protected those jars are.
2025.
I will leave you guys wrapping up the podcast.
Brent Pry made it longer than this mayonnaise.
It's close.
Pause. I need to run. My kid's waking up and my wife's asleep. So I'm gonna go handle that. You guys wrap up. Good pod.
Take care, Mike.
Good show. See ya.
We'll say it's tough to lose him, but
it is.
Yeah, Rick, you got anything else, man? Now that
make sure you rate, review, subscribe. Again,
if
please
subscribe.
You do not subscribe. Make sure you do that. The 500 number, for some reason, is really important to YouTube, so we would appreciate it if we can go ahead and get to that number here shortly. Counts Family Pharmacy, home field apparel. Make sure you use the promo code online on your first order. Get 15% off. We'll be back once we get some more news on the staff. We'll give it a little bit of time and see how things go. But until then, folks, go Hokies.